The story of Ragnar Lothbrok from the series Vikings. You don't need to have seen the series to follow along. If you have seen the series and think you know everything about this Viking warrior, think again. The true story of Ragnar is sometimes on the border between reality and legend. He is believed to have lived between 750 and 850 AD during the Viking Age's golden era. Ragnar was said to be a descendant of King Sigurd, a hero of Norse mythology, who himself was a descendant of Odin. Yes, Odin, one of the most badass Norse gods, the most powerful god of Asgard. That already gives you an idea of Ragnar's character. Just like in the series, Ragnar Lothbrok was a fierce warrior and an ambitious leader, driven by a desire to explore the world around him. His combat skills earned him the title of Jarl of Denmark, a rank equivalent to that of a count. And no, there is no proof of Ragnar killing the Jarl of Kattegat. Among his most famous feats were his raids on Northumbria, a kingdom straddling what is now northern England and southern Scotland. These expeditions gave him a fearsome reputation in the Christian world, which was expanding rapidly across Europe at the time. Ragnar had a habit of raiding villages on Sundays. Why Sundays? Because everyone was at church, making it easier to attack. He continued his raids across numerous Saxon kingdoms. And yes, the England we know today didn't exist back then. The territory was divided into many small kingdoms, like Northumbria, Mercia, Wessex, Kent, Sussex, and more. But Ragnar's ambitions didn't stop there. After his time in Northumbria, he set his sights on new lands and greater riches, moving south into what we now call France, though, of course, the map back then looked nothing like modern France. One of his most legendary feats was his raid on Paris. With a fleet of about 100 longships and thousands of warriors, he landed in what is now Normandy. They quickly sacked Rouen and used the Seine River to reach Paris. The siege of Paris began in 845 AD, and Ragnar once again attacked on Easter Sunday, knowing full well that Christian holidays meant lowered defenses. The French king at the time, Charles the Bald, was forced to watch part of his city burn and ultimately paid Ragnar a hefty ransom to make him leave. Ragnar's legend was solidified.
But, like all great stories, Ragnar's tale had to come to an end. The details of his death are murky, with two conflicting versions. The first is a glorious, legendary death. During one of his raids in Northumbria in 865 AD, he was captured by King Ella and thrown into a pit of venomous snakes. The second version is far less glamorous. He died of dysentery, essentially from severe diarrhea. Definitely less heroic, but more plausible, especially since venomous snakes weren't exactly common in 9th century Northumbria. With such a dramatic life, Ragnar reportedly had many wives and, consequently, many children, some of whom also entered legend. If you've watched the series, you probably know his wives, like Lagertha and Aslog, as well as his famous sons, Sigurd, Snake in the Eye, and Ivar the Boneless. After Ragnar's death, his most valiant sons returned to Northumbria to avenge him. They captured King Alla and executed him using the infamous Blood Eagle, a gruesome method of execution that, in reality, likely never existed. It was a concept invented by Christians to spread fear of the Vikings. Speaking of invented stories, was Ragnar Lothbrok even real? The answer is both yes and no. He most likely existed, but is considered a semi-legendary king. Ragnar remains a great mystery for historians, much like many other Norse figures from that era. The Vikings passed down their history orally, and as we know, oral traditions often twist facts over time. To complicate matters, the written accounts of Ragnar's exploits only appeared between 900 and 1200 AD, 100 to 300 years after his death, and were penned by Christian authors. So their objectivity is questionable. It is very likely that Ragnar's story is a blend of multiple warriors' lives from the same period. Some historians believe Ragnar may be a combination of figures like King Horik Juan of Denmark or Jarl Reginharus, a warlord known for his raids in western Francia. Sound familiar? Ragnar's story isn't entirely a lie, but it's heavily romanticized, just like in the series. Many characters from Vikings were inspired by real people. His wives, his sons, and even his so-called brother, Rollo, who wasn't actually his brother in real life and likely lived about a century after Ragnar's death. However, the series does reflect a historical truth. Rollo went on to conquer Normandy, became its duke, and pledged allegiance to King Charles the Simple, becoming Robert I of Normandy. Fun fact, the Normans have Viking roots. Then there's Floki, Ragnar's close friend in the series, known for discovering Iceland. Historically, though, Ragnar and Floki probably never met. Sorry to burst your bubble, but that's the reality. No reliable sources confirm Ragnar's exploits as historical facts. They are a mixture of Norse legends and the accomplishments of other warriors, all combined to create the legend of Ragnar Lothbrok.